And welcome in to the UMBC Ryan Odom Coaches Report. Gary Stein along with UMBC head basketball coach Ryan Odom. A big week for UMBC basketball this past week. We'll talk about it in a minute. We'll also meet the third set of brothers that have ever played for UMBC. The Schwietz brothers will be our guest. And of course, John Feinstein in that segment will talk about the state of college basketball and an interesting Hall of Fame potential for one of the subjects of one of the books that he wrote way back in the day. But first, UMBC basketball, Coach Odom, welcome in.
Thank you.
How are you?
Doing well.
Good.
Yeah, doing well.
Big week for UMBC basketball. 2 wins, both at home against the Binghamton Bearcats, and then a thrilling overtime game against Albany. Let's go back to Binghamton first.
Sure.
You guys were coming off a tough road trip. You had the home game on Wednesday night, and were able to extend by 19 over the Bearcats. Yeah,
big win for us. You know, certainly coming off a tough loss at UMass Lowell, we wanted to, put our best foot forward and play well, here at home in front of our fans. And I thought, from the beginning of the game, there was definitely a sense of urgency that our team had on the defensive side of the ball, and that spurred us on offense some. And we were able to play well throughout that game. A lot of contributions from different folks, different players in that game. But I thought the defense was really key. Holding a quality opponent to 48, was great.
It was one of the lowest defense or point totals that UMBC has given up in quite a while, actually, I think in the last 3 or 4 years. From that game, you go into the Albany game on Saturday afternoon. Historically, Albany has been a team that's given UMBC a lot of trouble, just like the University of Vermont has over time, although they did have a big win against Albany last year, as well as Vermont. And this was a nip and tuck game really all the way. I think the largest lead for either team was maybe 5 or 6 points. And then basically it came down to the final couple minutes, and we'll get to that in a second. But just give me a little bit about the ebb and flow of that game.
Yeah, I mean, it was a tough, hard-fought battle. I mean, defensive battle, mind you. And I thought, Albany played well, throughout the game. They got really good contribution from Healy, who I think is a dynamite, young player for the future of our league. He ended up with, I think, 22, 24 points or something like that in the game. Really a tough guard, for any program. And, he got off to a good start. And, I think their defense was excellent, throughout the first half. So we're down, I think it was 3 at half. Walk into the locker room, and you guys were a little bit down, quite honestly, at that point. And I walked in and I said, "Hey, guys, do y'all need to tell me something? Did we lose the game already?" And they're like, no, we're good. And, they came out of half and played pretty well. And it was just back and forth. And, Albany ended up kind of stretching the lead out there. And every time they would stretch it, our guys would fight back. And, a lot of times it was through the defense, and making something happen. And so it was good. It was good for me personally as a coach to see our team be able to succeed and find a way, within that game to be able to get it done. I think both teams are probably going through something a little bit similar right now. Ours certainly a little more. We've got some injuries, to some key players, and so we're having to adjust there. They've got, they had 2 guards leave their program last year, and so they're like we did. Ours graduated, and so all of a sudden we're kind of both in a little bit in transition. And so it was a really good battle, for two teams that have some younger players having to step up, at key times.
Joe Sherburne is your leading scorer, and he's having a tough shooting situation right now over the last few games. But there's so many things. You just mentioned the defensive effort. There's so many things that Joe Sherburne does outside of scoring points that don't show up in the box score. The charges he takes, the tough defense, etc. Even though he only had 4 or 5 points in that game, he was a major part of that game. Absolutely.
I mean, I rarely take him out of the game, obviously, because he is so valuable to our team on both sides of the ball. And, we all know he can shoot. And, the unfortunate thing is that the other teams know he can shoot. They know he can shoot as well. So they try to limit how many shots he can get off. And, some of Joe's shots are going to have to be, he's going to have to be okay with, them being contested at times. Because those are the only shots that he's going to really be able to get. And we're certainly searching, to try to find opportunities to get him open looks. But, you know, when a guy's attached to you, it's not as easy.
And Arkel Lamar also didn't have a great shooting performance either, but he did make a key steal.
He did.
And we'll talk about that. That really helped UMBC get there. And then we'll get to the overtime, the final decision by you. Just talk a little bit about Arkel's defense and great hands on that steal.
Yeah, he's really growing, you know, as a player, certainly on defense. He's paying attention to what we're trying to get across to him, you know, in terms of being in gaps and not being, you know, not gambling as much. You know, certainly that's a strength of his because he can knock balls loose, but occasionally it could be a weakness as well because he gets himself out of position. And so he's doing a much better job of making sure that his position is his help so he can kind of do two things at once. And that was a good example of it, and we needed it at that point. You know, we're down 2, and, you know, need a stop on that particular possession,
right,
or else it's probably going to be over. And he comes up with a huge stop, a steal, and ends up laying it in the basket. And then we got one more stop to kind of get it into overtime, which was huge.
And then let's talk about the overtime. Let's set it up. There's 9 seconds now left to play. Albany's on top, 64-62. You guys have an inbounds play called. You bring in Ricky Council into the basketball game. He hadn't played in quite a while. In fact, he only played 7 minutes the whole game.
Yeah.
Tell us, go through that with us, what you were thinking and why you called the play that you called.
Yeah, I mean, certainly it's a play that we work on from time to time, not certainly an everyday thing, but, you know, our guys are understand the play. And, you know, for us, you know, Ricky's an excellent shooter and a guy that can make shots. At Hartford, we drew up a play for him to get a shot, you know, at the end of the game there from 3. It almost went down, or else we would have won that one, and it just kind of rattled out. And so, you know, I wanted to give him another chance at it. And, you know, certainly that wasn't the only option on the play. We didn't have to have a 3 at that particular time. It could have been a 2 as well. We wanted to take the best first shot that we could get. And certainly he was open. Jose made a great read. RJ, you know, did a nice job of kind of pseudo screening there and getting out to the other side. Their defenders got mixed up a little bit, and Ricky was open. And so Jose trusted his teammate and pitched it ahead, and it couldn't happen to a better guy.
Yeah. So 65-64 was the final. UMBC now 3-2 in the conference as we enter this week's play. You talked about Jose. It's Jose Placer, the freshman guard from Orlando, was voted Rookie of the Week in the America East, had extensive action against both Binghamton and Albany.
Yeah.
Really nice player. Talk a little bit about his development.
He's really growing. You know, we've seen it a lot in practice. We've seen it occasionally in games. He's had some moments in games where he's played exceptionally well, and you kind of can see the jump shot, or you can see him driving and kicking it to another player, you know, for an open look. You know, he understands the game. He's played point guard his whole life. He's been getting adjusted to college. And, you know, I think the cool thing for us as a staff and our team is that we've got 2 freshman guards that are different. You know, they're both different. You know, RJ, you know, provides some size, and he's very safe with the ball, but is a good driver and kick guy. And then Jose's got a beautiful jump shot, and he's got the ability to score going to the rim as well. And so they're a tough matchup. And, you know, when KJ went out, KJ fouls out of the game, and now we have 2 freshmen that kind of have to lead us down the stretch and control the ball, you know, at the end of the game. And kudos to those guys for being able to get it done.
I mean, RJ just doesn't turn the ball over, period.
Yeah.
He's got like 11 turnovers in over 400 minutes. He hasn't turned the ball over in 4 games. Now that I've said that, of course.
Oh, please.
Right. Tough week.
Yeah.
You leave tomorrow. You go up to Vermont, and then you got New Hampshire on the weekend.
Yeah.
Vermont, of course, the site of a tremendous game last year in the American East Conference tournament. You're depleted.
Yeah.
What do you go into that game with?
Yeah, I mean, certainly we go in like we do in every game with we're optimistic about how we want to play, and we're optimistic about, you know, competing to win. And that's how we go into every game, regardless of who the opponent is. Having said that, Vermont's, you know, probably the best team right now on both sides of the ball in our league, along with Stony Brook. Those 2 teams haven't lost a game yet and are playing really good ball. Certainly there are other teams, you know, that are in the mix as well. It's still early in the conference. But Vermont, you know, has established themselves as a really good squad. And, you know, they've got a go-to player in Lamb. They've got an experienced guard in Ernie Duncan.
Right.
And they've got multiple other options there that, you know, they can go to. Anytime you go up there and play against them in Patrick Gym, you know, you're in for a fight. They rarely lose there. You know, it's a place that, you know, they support their team. in a positive way, and it's a fun environment to play in. It really is.
What kind of a reception do you think you guys will get there?
Same as we always do, you know. I mean, same as we always do. I mean, I really do. I have a lot of respect for Vermont and what they've been able to accomplish over the years, and certainly since I've been in the league, they've done an amazing job, and you know, it's an honor to share the court with them, to be honest.
Yeah, totally agree. Okay, we'll take a timeout here. When we come back, we will check in with John Feinstein, right? My play-by-play broadcast partner on the ESPN3 games. We'll do that when the UMBC Ryan Odom Coaches Show continues right after this. And welcome back to the show. Gary Stein, along with UMBC head men's basketball coach Ryan Odom, joined on the phone by my broadcast partner, your New York Times best-selling author, John Feinstein, with us. John, welcome in. How are you?
Very cold, but very, very pleased. I had a great day. I just got back from the Harvard-Howard basketball game at Burt Gym on the Howard campus, and the two coaches, Kevin Nickelberry and Tommy Amaker, I know Ryan knows both of them, very intentionally scheduled the game for Martin Luther King's birthday, and it was just a great, great afternoon. It really was.
And you had mentioned that the, was it the Harlem Gospel Choir?
Harlem Gospel Choir
Yes.
did the national anthem a cappella. Both teams standing together with their arms locked to honor Dr. King and the anthem, of course. And it was just absolutely, you know, you hear the anthem played and sung a lot of different ways on a lot of different days, but boy, these guys just blew it out. It was, if you didn't get a chill at the end of that, something was wrong.
And Coach, it being Martin Luther King Day, you had Freeman Hrabowski, the president, Dr. Freeman Hrabowski, talk to your team about Martin Luther King, and he was right there. Tell us how that went with them.
Yeah, it was obviously it was very inspiring. Anytime he walks into a room and addresses a group, if you're not like you just said, if you're not inspired, something's probably wrong with you. And you know, our guys obviously are very close with him, and you know, I've learned so much from him. I thought it was important. You know, typically we have a game on Martin Luther King Day in conference, and this is the first year that we haven't since I've been here. And so I thought it was important to be able to get Dr. Hrabowski over. He agreed to do it, and we just sat in the locker room and talked for about 30 minutes. And you know, the message was really, really good. Obviously, inspiring. He talked about hope. You know, he talked about dreams. You know, he talked about being intentional and seeking the truth. And our players, you know, were able to ask him questions about his childhood and growing up. You know, because a lot of these kids, you know, obviously all of these kids weren't born when this was going on, you know, and when Dr. King, you know, was impacting the world at that point. And I wasn't born, you know, at that time. So all we know is what our parents kind of has told us. And so it's really important that, you know, we never forget, you know, and we never forget where we were, because we certainly don't ever want to go back, right? And, you know, we're in a unique time, you know, in our world, and you know, he talked a lot about hope. You know, he's hopeful, you know, because of everything that's going on right now. He's hopeful of where things can go, because people do care. They clearly care.
Yeah. You know,
I'll just add two little facts to that. But Ryan just said, one that you guys both know is that Dr. Hrabowski marched with Martin Luther King.
Yes, he did.
When he was 12 years old in Birmingham, and actually went to jail.
Yeah.
Which of all the remarkable things about Dr. Hrabowski, that's the one that just blows me away completely. And the other one you guys may not know, when Dr. King gave his I Have a Dream speech on the Mall in 1963, one of his bodyguards that day was a Villanova basketball player named George Raveling.
Wow.
And as Dr. King walked off the podium at the end of the speech, George noticed that he'd left his notes from the speech behind. And he picked them up and walked over to Dr. King and said, "Dr. King, would you like these?" And he said, "No, keep them." And George did. And he still has them. to this day.
That is amazing. What an amazing
Isn't that
story.
extraordinary?
That
really
is extraordinary.
And then, John, am I right? George Raveling ended up coaching
USC.
USC, right?
Well, he coached Washington State. He coached Iowa. He was an assistant coach to Bob Knight on the '84 Olympic team, and he coached USC. And he's in the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. And one of the more interesting and remarkable people I've met in basketball through the years.
And as you both know, Dr. Hrabowski was at the UMBC Albany game and saw a thrilling finish to that game. John, I really haven't had a chance to talk to you about the finish yet, and I know you've got some questions for Ryan, but what were your thoughts as the final play with 9 seconds were unfolding?
Well, my thought when we talked about Ricky Council coming into the game,
right?
Because Ryan wanted to get another shooter on the floor in that circumstance, down 2, when had he last been in, Ryan? Like 18 minutes left.
Probably
in the
around
half?
then, yeah. And wasn't his best effort during that time?
He'd taken one shot that was deflected,
right?
And my thought was that Ricky was out there to provide a decoy.
Yeah.
And Ryan calls the play for Ricky, who's open in the corner, and he makes the shot like he's in an empty gym in practice or something. And then the frenetic ending because Albany was out of timeouts. And I think you guys both know that I am rarely speechless, but I think I was speechless when that game ended.
Yeah, I had to try to goad something out of you, John.
Ryan off the air, it was either with the dumbest coaching move in history or the smartest, and apparently it was the smartest.
Right. What motivated you to call that play? Like why that one?
Well, it's an end of game play, full court play that we have in, and it sometimes it'll catch folks. When you pitch it ahead like that, they're just not expecting it.
Right.
And, certainly it was an opportunity for us to try to get a quick shot up, and the message to the team was we don't have to have a 3 here, but we're going to test it. Let's see if they guard it right. If they guard it right, then we won't take that. Jose will keep going to the basket, and he'll try to get to the rim because we're only down 2. And RJ pops out, Arkel's coming in behind, Joe's coming in behind the play. You still have enough time, to do something else. And if you remember, Jose had just gotten to the basket, the previous play. And so, Jose saw him. He was wide open, and maybe not wide open, but he felt like he had enough time to be able to get it off. And he pitched it ahead to him, and Ricky didn't hesitate. He did his job there. And we all are confident in Ricky shooting the ball when he has room and rhythm. I mean, you can watch him in practice and just know, like, the guy can shoot the rock. And so we just have to put him in more of those positions to where he's open and has room. It was quite an ending.
The most important thing, I think, is, backing up what you just said, Ryan, is that even though he has struggled with his shot at times this year, Ricky clearly still has confidence in himself.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what allowed him to go out on the court after not being in the game for so long and take that shot in rhythm and drain it.
Yeah.
John, you had a really interesting day, actually, because that wasn't your only basketball game. You went up to Delaware about an hour and a half up and called the Towson-Delaware game. And while UMBC's win was the thrill of victory, that may have been the agony of defeat for Delaware up there.
Yeah, that was a very difficult loss for them. I said I did 2 games on television on Saturday, and they were decided by a total of 2 points.
Wow.
So how lucky was I? And I was especially lucky that the second game didn't go overtime because I wanted to get on the road and get back down I-95, and I was very glad it was just rain and not snow, given the weather reports. But Delaware led the game by 18 in the last minute of the first half, and led by 15 at halftime. And Towson, just somehow, we know how tough-minded Towson can be. We saw it at UMBC in December. Just kept grinding and getting offensive rebounds and played much better defense in the second half and ended up taking the lead on a shot by Zach Thomas, who hadn't played the previous 2 games and who was limping around on a bad hip almost the whole night. And then their best shooter, who'd had a tough shooting night, he made his first 3 and then didn't make another one, got fouled with 1.1 seconds left to go. And missed the first, 76% free throw shooter. Pat Scarry calls timeout, and he missed the second.
Wow.
Towson rebounds, and game's over, and they win. It was an amazing win for Towson, really, because they'd lost 6 in a row, and really, obviously, a heartbreaking loss for Martin Inglesby and his team.
That is a shame. Hey, John.
It was a fun day, though. I'll tell you that much. It was really a fun day for me.
2 good games.
Yeah. Hey, John, a final thought here real quick. The Hall of Fame, talking about Major League Baseball, actually announces its incoming class tomorrow. And Mike Messina, by all accounts, has a really good shot of finally making it. The reason why I bring it up is because you wrote a book about that season, Glavine and Messina, called On the Black. This was a few years ago. Your impressions and what you learned about Mike Messina when you were doing the book?
Yeah, it was 12 years ago, believe it or not, Gary.
I can't believe it.
2007 when I wrote Living on the Black. But I chose Messina and Glavine as my subjects for that book because I'd known them both, and they're 2 of the brightest guys I've met in sports. Now, Mike graduated from Stanford in 3.5 years. Tom never went to college because he was offered so much money by the Atlanta Braves to sign a baseball contract. But, you know, is every bit as bright as Mike, which is saying a lot. And Mike, working with Mike was great because he's one of the few athletes I've ever met who, when you ask him a question, he doesn't answer it right away. He actually thinks about it before he answers, and then he'll give you most of the time a very good answer. Now, if you're new to Mike Messina, he can be a little bit prickly, let's say. I stood at his locker on a number of occasions when guys he didn't know would walk up and say, "Hey, Mike, can I ask you a question?" And his response was always, "You just did." So not an easy guy starting out, but I hope he makes it tomorrow. He had 64% of the vote last year. You need 75%. The only new guy on the ballot who's an absolute lock is Mariano Rivera. You can vote for up to 10 if you have a vote for the Hall of Fame, Baseball Hall of Fame. And I hope Mike makes it. He won 270 games, was one of the most consistent pitchers of his era. Pitched for some bad Oriole teams and still always had good numbers. And I sincerely hope he makes it tomorrow.
Yeah. John, sounds good, my friend. I'll see you. We'll see you in about a week or so.
I will look forward to it.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
That is John Feinstein joining us here on the show. We'll take a timeout, and when we come back, we'll meet the 3rd set of brothers that have ever played for UMBC basketball. The Schwietz brothers will be our guests when we return right after this.
Respect is hard work. Respect is dedication.
Respect is earned on the court or on the field.
Respect doesn't judge based on sexual orientation or gender identity.
Respect is being the first conference to partner with the You Can Play project.
And the first conference in the LGBT Sports Safe Founders Club.
Respect coaches, players, and the game.
Respect similarities.
Respect differences.
Spread respect.
Spread respect.
Spread respect.
And welcome back to the UMBC Ryan Odom Basketball Report. Gary Stein along with Coach Ryan Odom. The answer is you're not seeing double. Okay, we do have 2 player guests with us, and if they kind of look alike, there's a good reason for that. They are actually brothers. It's the Schwietz brothers. Sam, Jack, welcome in. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Not too bad.
I'm doing great. Happy
Good.
to be here.
Okay. Is this your TV debut in terms of like being interviewed as brothers?
Yeah, I have never been interviewed with him.
Okay.
Yes, this will be my first time as well.
Okay. Coach, first of all, from you, you already had Sam. I'm sure Sam told you about Jack. So is that how this kind of happened, or what did happen?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was the initial connection, you know, through Sam and us just, you know, genuinely following, you know, their family and kind of what was happening with them. Obviously, you know, Jack was an aspiring basketball player at the time too, and you know, the 2 sides, it has to be right for both. And you know, as it got down to it, you know, it became less about, oh, my brother's here. It's like, is this the right situation, you know, for both of us, for Jack, you know, as a player and a student, and then obviously from our perspective, you know, was he right for us as well and at the right time? And he was.
And we'll talk about what that means in a minute. But first, let's go to you, Sam. This isn't the first time you've actually played with your brother. You guys had a year in high school. Give us a little about, I'll tell you what, you give us a little about him, and then he'll give us a little about you. What would you say about your brother, Jack?
You know, we used to play in the backyard probably every day, 365 days a year, cold weather, snow, didn't really stop us. And for a while, I used to always beat Jack because I was taller than him. But as he grew and he got a little better, it started getting more competitive around high school, and it got more fun. And I think we both got better from it, and he's only gotten better since I got to school. He's actually grown a lot in terms of like how he plays and how much more he can do since like I left home to come here. So it's great to see that he's still growing with me gone.
So you're 6'9", 6'8", 6'9"?
Yeah, I'm in that range.
Okay, and Jack, you're what,
6'5".
6'5".
Yeah.
So, like, did you have a growth spurt?
Yeah, my freshman year I was like, what, 5'11", and then I shot up my sophomore year, like 6'1", 6'2", and then my junior year is when I sprouted up to like 6'4", and then I'm kind of just staying at 6'5" as of right now, but I'm hopefully for a couple more inches, but I don't know.
So what do you say about the 365 days a year that you guys played against each other?
Yeah, we used to always go in the backyard. There's been brawls sometimes where people were getting cut up and kids cry when we were little, but it was always super fun. And I mean, Sam kind of like showed me basketball, and I've always like kind of, when Sam started playing, I've always been like the kid that wanted to like be around Sam and like be around the guys and stuff like that when I was little. So I just kind of like followed Sam, and I was like kind of stuck with me too as well. Yeah.
What kind of camaraderie do they have for you in the locker room and on road trips?
Yeah, I mean, certainly they look out for one another, and initially it was Sam kind of, looking out for Jack, but you see it in reverse as well. And obviously Sam's, playing a little bit more than Jack is right now, and he's his biggest fan, out there. And Sam does a really good job of being big brother, understanding that it's not easy to be a freshman. He's been through it before.
Right.
And I think he does a good job of mentoring him and helping him while, giving him the business every now and then.
Sure. One thing that I think is really easily noticeable when you guys are either on the bench or on the floor is the amount of fun that you guys seem to be having. Whether you're playing together or not, really. You could be on the floor, you could be on the bench, whatever. But the amount of smiles that come out of your faces, no matter what the situation is, I think leads the team in that category.
Yeah, I mean, even when we weren't playing together, I would go to his tournaments and he would go to mine, so it's always just been like you're cheering for, like, I guess it's your family, but it's also as an individual person because you want to see him succeed. And it's awesome to see him when he succeeds and he gets that smile because he gets energetic, and when he gets going, he's fun to watch.
I totally agree. From your perspective, was UMBC, because Sam was here, was it like a no-brainer for you, or what went into your decision?
I thought a lot. I mean, I came up here and then I met all the coaches and got a good feel with them, and they, made me feel like home. And then, Sam being here as well, it's just like a second person to go to. Like, something's not going right, you can always go talk to him, and that was a no-brainer as well. It was like, okay, Sam's here, like, it's a good fit. Like, I like the coaches a lot, and the arena's huge, it's nice, it's perfect. And I thought it was a really good fit, that's why. Yeah.
Coach, from your perspective, to have brothers, is that any different at all than just two other players?
It is a little bit different.
It is?
Like sometimes, we'll be in a huddle and, we'll be coaching, call it the black team, gold team, whatever, and they happen to be on the same team. And a negative play just happened. Well, sometimes the brothers come out, and I have to remind them, all right, let's talk normal to one another. But they do a really good job. I'll have to give them a lot of credit. They really do support one another in a positive way, which is unique. It really is. But they've both done well since they've been here.
Yeah, you had an interesting year last year. You were part of the NCAA. The greatest upset ever, basically, as far as the tournament. But you had to watch from the bench because you redshirted the year, ankle surgery.
Yeah.
How was that for you?
You always want to say, like, hey, like, I wanted to play a part in it. But if one thing changes, who knows what would have happened. So as much as I want to wish that I was healthy and I got to participate, like being like a part of that moment, even if it's not like playing in that moment, I think was pretty special, and I wouldn't take that away from myself or anybody else. But also it's inspiring. Like, if I still get chills when I watch like highlights of the game, because like that's like the guys I spend probably 90% of my year with. Like every day we're here together, laughing, grinding, like in a lot of pain, but we're still here. Like, so it was awesome to just see all the success and all the hard work come together in the end.
And from your perspective, you're watching it from a couple thousand miles away. And could you believe what you were seeing?
Me and my mom actually were able to make the trip out.
You were?
Last second,
Okay.
yeah. We found 2 flights real quick, and we got to go, and it was probably the most crazy thing ever I've ever seen. It was halftime. It was 21-21, and I'm just like, they got this in the back, and they just slowly kept extending the lead. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is really happening. Like, this is insane.
Wow, that's awesome. Them coming from a very athletic family, which we'll talk about in a moment, not just basketball, but all sports. Ice hockey, sprinter. Jack was telling me his sister is a bobsledder.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an interesting athletic dynamic.
It really is a unique family, and certainly they have 2 great parents. And Mom obviously has been able to attend more games than Dad has. But I mean, watching her smile, seeing her boys play and be together.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not much more a mother could ask for, and it's really fun. I'm excited, for their whole family, but. She's probably the athletic one of the whole group, right?
Yeah.
Is she the most athletic?
She is.
That's where it comes from?
Yeah, she's 52, and she weighs less than she did when she had her wedding day.
Wow.
Yes. And she's running a marathon in Long Beach this week.
How about that?
Yeah.
So, and I was telling you guys before we started taping that really maybe we could spend just a couple minutes. You guys tell us a couple stories, about growing up, about competing against one another, etc. Both of you, of course, had those big smiles on your face. Okay.
Yeah.
So, Sam, why don't you go ahead and start and just, I don't know, give me something good that happened.
Something
whenever,
good.
Yeah.
Okay. So, one of the days, backyard basketball, obviously, and Jack trips, and he says, "I pushed him." He's got a little blood on his arm or whatever. He's really upset. He goes, "Check up." So I checked the ball up, and I'm going to the basket, and I just get shoved right into the fence. I had a huge gash in my arm, and not to say that words were not exchanged, but they were. And we kept playing. I think both of us probably had cuts and scrapes and bruises. And we walked in the house, and my mom was like, "What the happened?" And I was like, "We tripped." It's another day out in the backyard. And we probably did the same thing the next day too. So obviously, we've always been competitive, but at the same time, at the end of it, we were always smiling and laughing. So,
So you being the little brother, right?
Yeah.
And he kind of probably dominated you for a while.
For sure.
How did it feel when you finally started to catch up to him and, kind of give it back to him?
I feel like I was behind for the longest time, and then as soon as I got to the middle school, I was really chubby, and I was growing a little bit, and so I felt like I was able to bully him a little bit more. So that's when I started to maybe beat him once every 10 times, and then it kept back and forth between us.
So what is it now?
Yeah.
I don't know. When's the last time we played?
we played pickup at Impact.
Yeah, we did.
And I won. I won the whole thing.
He did. Luckily, it was I was down by 1 somehow, and he had a lucky shot.
If you believe it or not, I actually made 5 threes in that series.
5 threes.
5 threes to win that thing.
It's more than you made in your career, isn't
Yeah,
it?
I think I'm 0 for 0 right now. So.
Right. How did you grow up a Laker fan? No, you're a Spurs fan.
No, I'm.
You were a Spurs fan.
Yeah, I've always admired the Spurs style of basketball. I would say
Okay.
they're probably my favorite. But kind of the Warriors have adopted that now.
Okay.
But it's a little different. They have a lot of different players.
And are you still a Lakers fan?
I am. I mean, I'm kind of a LeBron fan, so
Okay.
I would just really admire him, and just from him bouncing around teams, I just kind of stuck with LeBron. So wherever LeBron goes, that's who I'm with. Yeah.
So you're a junior.
Yeah.
You've got this year and next year, so you're going to play together for 2 years. You played together, I was talking to Jack, 1 year in high school together.
Yeah.
Was that different than what it is now?
Jack missed a good portion of that year with an ankle injury.
I broke my ankle.
Okay.
But I would say it's different in how we fit, because he was more of a 1 at that time
I
than
was pretty short.
And so he would dribble the ball up, and if he would turn it over, he'd hear a lot of lip from me, because I was probably a little more immature in terms of being able to handle adversity than I am now. So I would say it's a lot different. He's more of a playmaker or a scorer in terms, not necessarily handling the rock and distributing the ball.
Let's ask Coach. How do you see Jack?
He's a versatile player, yeah. I mean, he can make shots. He can make them not only off the catch, but he can make them off the dribble in a one-on-one situation. He's a really good passer. In AAU, actually, they won the whole thing in the EYBL, the Oakland Soldiers.
Yep.
And one of the guards is playing at Georgetown now, right? And the other guard's playing at
Virginia.
And he played right alongside with them and did extremely well in some high-level games. And Sam was able to go and watch him play, and his mom and dad as well in those games. But he's carried that on here. I mean, he's got a really bright future. He's a versatile guard for us, and I'm excited, that he's on our team.
Do you room them together?
No, they don't. Okay. You have Brandon, right?
I have Brandon, yeah, I have Brandon.
Who do you have?
I've had no one for 4 years.
Yeah.
I was about to change, but I guess I'm going to have to find somebody new next year.
Yeah, and Joe has Portman. Joe will not release Portman. Yeah.
Joe's not trading.
Wow. What do you think about the year over year? In other words, last year the high of the team doing what it did, and now coming back to work this year. Obviously, you love playing the game of basketball, but is it difficult to come off that high and start all over again?
Well, personally, I think I was more hungry than ever because I missed a year, and I wanted to get back. I was definitely had some weight issues from not being able to move for 4 months, so I really focused on my eating and like my cardio. Like last game, Odom even said like I need to get more wins, so that's what I focused on, and I was able to play a lot longer in the next game, and it paid off because we won. So I just find myself grinding for more right now. I'm not happy with what I have.
If I could stay with that real quick for 1 second, the year before last year, so this was the 16-17 year, you made a big impact in the second half of the season, and a lot of that was about the fact that you kind of changed your body.
Yeah.
I remember talking to you about this. You lost some weight, you changed your eating habits, you kind of, just did it. Talk to me about that transition for you.
So I dropped 20 pounds because, I wasn't eating right, and like I wasn't getting as many reps in practice because I wasn't playing as much. So I decided to just, I can't. Nobody else is gonna look out for me, and it's not anybody else's fault but my own. So if I eat right and if I train harder and if I do better, then I'm only giving myself a shot to play. And it worked out, and I think Coach Odom noticed that I was working harder and I was hungrier, and it translated into my playing time and my impact in the game.
And Coach, you're going to need him now more than ever because of the injury situation.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, certainly we're in an interesting situation right now with Dan's season being over, Max's season being over as well. Brandon's, got a bad hand right now, so we're down in numbers. And Sam obviously was playing anyway, but now he's got to play a lot more. And the last couple games he's been doing really well. And he's played his role, whatever we've asked him to do since the time I stepped on campus. So I have no doubt that he'll do the same here with this new role.
Jack, have you noticed a difference in intensity or whatever between the non-conference season and now you're about 5 games into the conference season?
I noticed a big difference. I mean, just because it's conference season and you want to be that top spot. So it's definitely more locked in, I would say, but not to say that we're not locked in at our non-conference, but it's just this is go time. This is where we got to shine, and this is where the work that we put in the summer shows now.
Do you, you played a lot during high school. Obviously, you're not playing a lot right now as far as a freshman. Is that a transition for you?
No, it's definitely a transition. It's something that I've had to grow through, and I've had a couple conversations with Coach Odom, and it's just something that you have to embrace. And so when your number's called, that you're ready to go, and you're always locked in for what's going on because you never know what's going to happen. Brandon's injured right now, so this could be my time to step up.
Coach, I would say you got a good pair here.
I do. I'm very lucky coach, lucky staff, and we're excited that we got the Schwietz brothers here with us.
This is, by the way, the 3rd pair of brothers that have played for UMBC over the last 40 years. They had the Kane brothers back in the 70s, the Reynolds brothers in the 80s, and now the Schwietz brothers in the 2010s. Guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Sam?
Thank you.
Jack? Oh, okay. Coach, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That'll do it. That's a wrap for the UMBC Ryan Odom Coaches Basketball Report. Gary Stein, and we'll see you next week.